Alright, let's get this out of the way right now. I've seen the comments. I know. I am now well aware that the Pixel remasters are baby mode levels of easy. That's my bad. That being said, I am mostly here for the plot anyways, and the game systems behind them, so we will continue to use the Steam remasters as is, just for the sake of consistency for the whole series. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, welcome. I'm Kurojakku. Join me as we continue our adventure through the anthology that is Final Fantasy, going back in time before Buster Swords and Bunny Girls to the third installment, of which I hear very little about, breaking down the story, gameplay, and everything in between. Like and sub for more random retro game content, among other things, and thanks to all of you who have done so already. More about how you can support the channel at the end. Now then, how bad was Final Fantasy III? Continuing the Square Enix trend of completely botched release cycles, Final Fantasy III originally released in Japan in April of 1990. Meanwhile, in the West we got, well, nothing. Nothing at all, much like how the original Western release of Final Fantasy II was actually Final Fantasy IV all along. What you may know as Final Fantasy III is actually Final Fantasy VI. Are you confused yet? 'Cause I sure am. Instead, we will be playing the only proper Western version, that being the Pixel remaster released on Steam in 2021. And yes, I'm aware that there were 3D remakes well before then, but I wanted to keep it as close to the original as I could find. As I said before, these are apparently a far easier version of the game than the originals, but I do not know Japanese and I already bought the game. All of them, in fact. So we are in it for the long haul, folks. Menu music is the same as before. I reckon this will be the case for all the Pixel remasters. So let's just start a new game and begin our adventure by naming this charming little group of color-coded comrades. No job selection of any sort, but we will come back to that in a minute. I've decided to bring my FC friends from Final Fantasy XIV along for the ride. Myself, of course, as handsome and humble as ever. More humble than anyone has any right to be, really. Luna, who thinks she is the main character, and unfortunately for her, she will not be. It's my video, I make the rules. 1-1, who will find some way to inevitably fall off a ledge at some point, and Speen, because she is best girl and I didn't know who else to make the green one. If you get that reference, then you probably played 14, otherwise, don't worry about it, let's just move along. Into the silence one of the Golgons prophesied. The great earthquake was only the beginning. The tremors tore the land asunder. The crystals, sources of the world's light, were swallowed into the depths as monsters emerged from the chasms now scarring the earth. Yet that was nothing compared to the catastrophe to come. Something fathomless, ominous, and laden with sorrow looms on the horizon, but hope is not yet gone completely. 4 souls will be blessed with the power of light, and so it shall begin. We begin our journey as 4 youths in identical yet color-distinct clothing, who just so happen to fall in some pit. I'm gonna blame 1-1 for that. After a short intro cavern that introduces us to combat and items and the like, we find ourselves in a blue crystalline room with an even larger crystal at the center. Our young lads and lasses have now become warriors of light, gifted the crystal's power to set forth and bring balance to the world. Now, elemental crystals are nothing new for Final Fantasy. However, this is the first time we see them be the very source of our power, so... Ladies and gentlemen, the Final Fantasy XIV reverse reference counter shall be making a return backed by popular demand. Some of you requested it, and who am I to pass up on a good idea? I'll only be calling out things we haven't already seen in previous games, mind you. Moving along, we didn't just get the Wind Crystal's blessing, but alongside it, unlock job selection. You see, much like Final Fantasy I, each hero has a job or a class, and it seems they all make a return here. However, unlike FF1, you can change jobs at any time, at least any time in the remaster, that is. The default being the Onion Knight, which we start as, and as I make my way out of the cave and back to my quaint little village, I decide on which jobs to fill. While I could use the same party comp I used in FF1, I do want to mix things up a bit, so naturally I made Kuro a red mage once more. If that doesn't sound like a mix-up to you, that's because it isn't. I missed my damn hat, thank you very much. I was not a fan of the bandana I was forced to wear for an entire game. Worry not though, cause 1-1 has been made a monk, as he usually plays melee in 14 anyways. Luna is gonna stay as an Onion Knight for a little while because it's blue, and unfortunately the job outfits do not change color to match the character. That would have been a nice little touch had they, but oh well. Speen, of course, is then a white mage, because I am a coward and not having a healer is scary. How these jobs differ from one another, I do not know. In Final Fantasy I, the only difference was what gear and spells you had available, but I never noticed any unique skills or passives. Stats themselves also varied from job to job, and I am curious to see how that works out here. Do stats carry over? Would leveling warrior give more HP to all other jobs for that character? Will there be more jobs granted by the other crystals? Only time shall tell. Using what pocket change we start with, I gear up my little lads with the best gear I can find. Dual wielding from FF2 persists, though only my red mage seems capable at the time. Fitting, I suppose, if you watch the FF2 playthrough. Magic is also a bit of a blend between the two former titles. Spells are purchased into your inventory much like in FF2, but the actual casting of them is more akin to FF1. No need to rank up a spell over repeated use, and no general mana pool all spells share. Back to the tiered spell system, where weaker, low-tier spells have far more casts per rest, while more potent spells are much more limited and need to be saved for the right time. Personally, I actually prefer this system, as it gives every spell, even those weak early game ones, some use and function in the late game. Knowing when to conserve your strength and use a weaker spell instead of overkilling a random bug and wasting your best attacks gives a simple game a lot more depth than you'd think. Starting Town is cute, and it does a good job of setting up some ground rules, teaching the player about secret passages and to keep an eye out for them. More on those later. Using the inn as a save point for free, which in the original would have been the only way to possibly save the game at all. And the introduction of interactable props, or items as they are called. You see, previously, the only thing worth searching for on any given map was either rare mob encounters for the bestiary, or chests that are very obvious and visible on the map. By adding these props to the collectibles, it subtly encourages you to really scrounge around the map looking for goodies in a more organic way. I will also touch back on this in a moment. Restoring party members and your HP and MP has been relegated to the Blessed Spring pools. This may not seem like an important change now, but it will matter in the near future. After exploring around the area a bit, I sleuth out what we should be doing. The opening area is rather small and the NPCs do a good job of giving hints as to what to do. I head to the nearby castle where everyone is turned to ghosts. The king tells me to visit a town in the south to find a mithril ring that can bind the djinn that cursed all the locals in the first place. Why my hometown wasn't also accursed? I do not know. Decide to scurry about looking for anything not nailed down, find some secret passages leading to a bunch of free supplies. This is yet another great example of natural exploration, albeit without any enemies in here, but it will still help to prove my point. If you enter a room and there's just a chest in the corner, you'll naturally beeline to that chest directly. However, if these chests are somewhere seemingly inaccessible, and you know secrets do in fact exist, you'll want to start hunting about, smushing your face against every wall and crevice you can find. Every step you take is a chance at an encounter. Every failed attempt to find the gap in the wall is a chance to get jumped by some skeletons or some such. So the more you give me reason to look around, the more risk reward there is. This game is also already starting to feel a lot tighter when it comes to resource management compared to the previous two, at least at the start. While this room is safe, these secret passages combined with the new props may make dungeons a lot more interesting, especially if low on supplies. Do I book it for the exit, or risk looking around and getting caught off guard? This is a far more interesting approach than the silly one FF2 had, using a series of 4 doors just placed there to waste your time. I almost get bodied by a griffin I probably have no business messing with, but do manage to make it out alive and run back home for a quick healing bath. Got a sweet new sword for Kuro in the process, I might add. Combat is also a blend of the previous 2 games, keeping the front and back positions, which actually feels a lot more useful in a game with set class roles. The change FF2 made to allow you to spread cast spells is also nice to see make a return, and in terms of quality of life, dual wield weapon animations now hit much faster. Neat. The town the king mentioned also happens to be cursed with ghostitude, and we meet an old friend. One Mr. Sid himself. I'm starting to think Sid and his airship are just going to be appearing into every Final Fantasy game at this point. He tells us to borrow his airship and use it to cross that itty-bitty pond to get to the Djinn Cave. Unlike in previous games, the airship is no longer all-powerful and can't cross over mountains, it seems. Perhaps it's a very low-flying airship, considering a simple boulder is enough to keep it trapped here. Though I do like this scene where I get to actually see inside the thing. It serves functionally no purpose, at least for now, but still, kinda cool. The first dungeon, actually quite stressful. Not the hardest thing in the world, but I do have to manage my resources accordingly. And had I not prepped ahead, likely would have ended up reloading a save a time or two. It's a simple dungeon, and we meet a lost princess, whose mithril ring should be able to help us with the Djinn. Here we see a major improvement from FF2. Instead of companions joining the party in the place of a fourth rotating party member who can't properly be leveled or used in any meaningful way, companions now just follow along without taking any part in combat whatsoever. The simplicity of FF1 with the narrative support of FF2. I like this a lot. The Jin hits like a fucking truck, turns out. Multiple friends die, but I barely put him down, and sweet little Sarah teleports us back home to safety. The curse is lifted, people can be people again, and the king gives us a celebratory canoe. You'll find small form watercraft in the strangest of places in Final Fantasy. The princess also apparently wishes to see us already. Not sure how you can miss someone you just saw like a little while ago, but alas. Wait here, lads, I must go romance the princess. Finally, I get to have my Final Fantasy, if you know what I mean. Oh, god damn it. Okay, never mind, we have to go deal with those crystals or whatever first. Come along, lads, let's pretend that didn't just happen and go find Cid. Oh my god. Cid is a dwarf. This is amazing. This might be the best Cid we've ever seen and ever will see. You are now my best friend. I was right to check on the guy because his ship is in fact the key to get us past that boulder. All we need is the local smithy to build a ram onto said airship, which I just so happen to leave parked across the pond. Now, I imagine that the intent here was for you to bring the airship back, but I did not do that. In fact, upon leaving the town, the ship was certainly still across the pond. This implies that this old smithy man, in the span of just a few moments, with smithing tools in hand and a silly amount of mithril on his back, booked it through the woods, swam across a lake, built an entire plow with no forge unless he somehow brought a portable one, swam back across the lake, up through the forest, and back home to let us know the deed was done. What am I even doing here in this story? This man should be the warrior of light, not me. Anyways, off we go to Cid's home of Canaan. Give his wife some meds, ask about the town for some direction as to what to do, and stumble upon two leads. One, a village of gnomes, and two, a man climbing up a dragon mount. Considering the mountain is practically right outside the front door, I begin my search there. It's not so much a dungeon as it is a short yet treacherous hike, though we do obtain the arrow spell. Nice to see why magic get access to wind now. Find the lad waiting at the top, and bravely turn our tails and flee when Bahamut shows up. Our new friend gives us a spell on the way down. Bad time for gift giving, but thanks anyways, I suppose. And we unfortunately land on the wrong side of said mountain. Now stuck and isolated from our home, fortunately, however, we land near those aforementioned gnomes, and using that aforementioned spell can shrink ourselves down into itty-bitty sizes, that way we can converse properly with the locals. Finally, my dear friend Luna is accurately sized, and yes, she is going to be very displeased with me for that joke. Remember how I said swapping out inns for water ponds would matter? What's nice is the pond here letting us refill our MP as much as needed to shrink the whole party, stopping any possible softlocks while making magic feel more like a tool to be used even outside of combat. This is actually going to become a reoccurring theme throughout the game. I love Gnome Land. Turns out being tiny will be needed for a bit longer, and I accidentally trip on exactly the secret tunnel I need to progress. Decide to look around a bit first, but alas, there's really not much here besides whimsy and a little gnome bread shop. I spend more money than I probably should on micro pastries, thinking they would do something special, but turns out all they do is show you the map. This gives me a feeling that this would have once been more useful in the original, assuming that it had no dedicated map button. Still, the concept of a bite-sized loaf giving you all-seeing omniscience is an interesting thought in and of itself. Let's move on. The secret tunnel is a tad spooky, as we are very vulnerable in this tiny state, and leads us outside to a Viking cove, which allows me to nap and recast Minnie over and over to de-shrinkify myself. Bad idea. As it turns out, we will be needing Minnie again very, very soon. You see, this is where we'd obtain the ship. The ship is, however, blocked by an unpleasant sea dragon, so we must instead appease the beast by going up to a shrine, shrinking ourselves down, and jumping into the empty eye socket. This segment basically forces you to play with mages, as minis don't swing weapons all that well. They do 1 damage per hit. These enemies have far more than 1 health. Magic, however, is entirely unaffected. The rat boss was a bit of a tussle, but our tiny heroes succeed and can replace the missing eye right where it belongs. That pissed off sea dragon tells us to find a water crystal, but we kinda already knew that bit, and off we scurry to our newly won ship. I must say, I am really enjoying FF3 so far. It's definitely making me work more than the previous 2 did, and this whole segment really drove home the fact that you must engage with the job swapping system. It's not going to just let you pick the 4 you like and sweep the game. Each job is a tool and you must use it accordingly. I do still wish there was more differences or something special about jobs apart from magic slots and equipment. Warrior and Monk especially just feel the same with different pixels to swing and different stat lines, but nothing particularly interactive between the two. While struggling to find my next goal, I sail around for a bit. Find an abandoned castle and rob it of all its belongings, meet some fairies talking about living woods. My bad, ladies! I didn't realize my fly was down, sorry about that. Stumble across a ransacked village where the locals tell me some soldiers have ravaged the place bearing the crest of the aforementioned abandoned castle. That's a bit strange. Head west across the desert and find the aforementioned living tree fortress. Odd place for a tree, I'd reckon. Have I said the word aforementioned enough times in this video? And on the other side of the forest, I find chocobos! They are as cute as they were in the last game and seem to function pretty much exactly the same. Next door is a village that has not been put to the sword, and before I even have time to look around, some whelp goads me into running the entire length of the map on a trusty yellow steed. Well, I'm not one to say no to a challenge, so we will come back to this later. Fetch me my chocobo! I shall call you Biscuit. It was not a particularly memorable ride, unfortunately, but I did notice something odd that I had not really noticed before. The entire map seems to be floating on an island in the sky. I'm not sure if this has any narrative significance or if that's just what they chose the backdrop to be, but just thought I'd mention it. Oh, and another thing. I've heard this world map theme somewhere before. Something about it just feels extremely familiar. So I went back and I actually checked the soundtrack for clues. Now, the title Eternal Winds might seem arbitrary to you, but I swear I've heard it somewhere before. And yes, I have. Eternal Winds is actually part of a lyric from a Shadowbringers track in Final Fantasy XIV called Tomorrow and Tomorrow, one of my personal favorites, no wonder I've heard it time and time again. But this is not actually the melody I'm looking for. I did, however, eventually find it. The main Shadowbringers theme uses this very same melody in the final act of the song. I knew it. I knew I have heard this 100 times before. Also, Eternal Wind itself is used as the theme for the Crystal Exarch in the main questline, which has me thinking, is the Crystal Tower in my near future? Well, add 3 more references to the 14 tally. I finally return to that village and get the damn counter back on screen because it is about to get flooded. Pun intended. If you know, you know. This is the village of Ancients, descendants of beings responsible for all of creation. People responsible for floating this entire rock into the sky. Yep, turns out that does in fact have narrative purpose. They speak of warriors of darkness, heroes who save the world from being consumed by a flood of light. That it is our turn to maintain the balance and stop darkness from consuming all. This is all sounding awfully familiar. Also, that bloke who sent me on a wild choco chase just gave me some bread. Not cool, dude. Heading back up north, I try to sail my ship through a little gap in the land, only to be blocked by a whirlpool and an ominous tower besides. I wander the area and check out a little cave of blind fortune tellers. These Golgars speak of calamity to come and so forth and give me a toad spell for my troubles. I've seen this trick before. Let me guess, you are going to make me use this to get into that tower, aren't you? Well, joke's on you, I planned ahead and made sure to toad up my little lads and refresh my EMP before returning to the tower, allowing me to untoad and fight my way through properly. Our friend Desh was actually an ancient all along. We climbed the tower, killed Medusa, who is not nearly as hot as you'd think she'd be. Wouldn't, by the way. And he throws himself into the reactor to repair it and dies in the process. He will be missed. This then allows us to sail forth to the Isle of the Dwarves and potentially one of the crystals that we seek. Lolly-ho! Not adding this to the counter, dwarves have been around since FF1, but it is nice to see them again. It seems they've lost a special horn and need us to go get it, but first I sail off to the other corner of the Skyrock. One of those stunties mentioned the town of Geisel, and since there's a choco forest right outside and trees mysteriously asking for items, I have a feeling I know what to do. Sure enough, Geisel has many greens and a few magic keys I bought just to be safe. Surely those will be needed later. I zip back on over to the dwarves, meet some hot mermaids along the way. Wood! And with cabbage in hand, meet the fattest chocobo you'll ever see. Turns out he's some sort of bank or storage system. Did the original have an inventory limit? You tell me. This isn't a knock on the classic, but I'm not sure why the remaster added all of these quality of life elements that sort of just invalidate parts of the game. Oh well. Getting all frogged up again to dive into the pool and track down that stolen horn. Love that we are still using spells as tools and not just for combat, by the way. Run through a very straightforward cavern and find the thief in the back. Gutsko was an absolute unit of a man and took a good goddamn while to go down. And when I left the pool, I noticed a strange something following me. This surely won't be an issue at all. Let's just return the stolen horn. Oh, god damn it. Okay, never mind. It was Gutsgo all along. Now we have 2 stolen horns to deal with, and he's pranced off to the north, and of course it's up to me to give chase. Quick side note, using the follower mechanic in a completely different way just to continue the plot. Very simple, but very well done. This game keeps impressing me at every turn. The Molten Cave is not like previous lava maps you see. The lava, somehow, does not hurt you unless it's a lava fall. I guess the Warriors of Light have heat-resistant grippers. Gutsgo awaits us at the Fire Crystal, and with the help of his pet salamander, kinda kicks my ass a little bit, I'm not gonna lie. I beat it first try through the use of high potions every few swings, but Kuro was the only one who made it through unscathed. I always knew I was the main character here. Surely this isn't foreshadowing anything in the future. It was all worth it, however. The Fire Crystal behaving much like the Wind one from the start of the game, and granting us new jobs to play. We will take a peek at these in just a moment. But first, I dropped off the horns, got interrupted by this dying lad, and told the town of Tokul, which I saw earlier, is once again under attack. They really just won't leave these poor people alone, will they? On my way, however, I decided to test out these new jobs, and to my surprise, they are actually more than just new sprites and different equipment. You see, each job has an actually unique ability now. The Knight can guard. I wasn't sure what this did initially, but later I figured out that it reduces the damage the party takes. Thief can steal from enemies and also help us escape combat. Ranger has a powerful arrow barrage that attacks enemies at random, and most importantly, Scholar, who has the ability to detect an enemy's weaknesses and hit points, and the alchemy skill that I had not quite figured out just yet. I do love to see some uniqueness amongst the jobs finally. My newly assigned party in tow, minus Bean, she is still a white mage because I am still a coward, nothing has changed there. I head back to the town of Tokul only to be kidnapped and tossed into that living tree fortress. I meet the missing king, use Minnie to skedaddle my way out of my cell, fight my way to the mastermind behind all this, and along the way meet a hot lamia. Wood. I also realize what alchemy does. It doubles the potencies of all consumables. This will be very important soon. Hien was a simple enough fight. He changes his weaknesses every so often, making Scholar damn near mandatory to avoid all the guesswork. A good display of the new job's abilities and serves as a sort of pseudo-tutorial in disguise. One well-timed alchemy boosted Zeus's wrath later, and Hien is slain. The king returns to his castle, and I follow suit to see if he has any goodies for me. The magic keys I found earlier let me break into locked towers for some extra loot, and King Argus tells me to go find Cid and bring him the Wheel of Time. Well, it's a fantastic novel, my liege, but I'm not sure what this has to do with anything. Alas, who am I to question royalty? Eye of the world in hand, I run back over to Canaan, deliver the Great Hunt to Mr. Cid, who then uses the Crown of Swords to fashion my humble sailboat into a mighty airship, and regales me of the time the gathering storm is what brought him much fame as a renowned airship engineer. If you understood what the hell I'm on about, you now have to like and subscribe. If you did not understand, congratulations! You now have homework. There will be a quiz next Tuesday. Now that I have an airship of my very own, I decide to fly off the edge of the map to see what I can find in... Oh my god, I was not expecting this at all. An entire new world map was opened up to me. What a delightful way to make you feel like you've been exploring about to and fro, only to have it all just be a small fraction of the world as a whole. Brilliantly done. God, I love this game. There isn't much we can do around here. I give a sick girl in a wrecked ship a potion to wake her up. She turns out to be the water priestess Arya, who joins us to go retrieve the water crystal. First, grabbing a shard of it and then plunging into the depths of a nearby cavern to return it to its rightful place. One slight problem, however. An assassin thwips poor Arya in an attempt to kill us, and we proceed to pummel him with the power of alchemy and bittersweet revenge. Get good, bub. Learn to aim before you try to play Stealth Archer. It's quite literally step one. And another thing, why is a kraken using a bow in the first place? Very odd. Very odd choices here. In her dying breath, Arya bestows upon us the blessing of water, and before you know it, we've unlocked even more jobs. But first, plot. You see, upon touching the crystal, we caused a massive earthquake, the flood subsiding and revealing the surface world anew. The people who were once turned to stone now preserved with no memory of the calamity that had befallen them. Our heroes awake in a tavern, our ship chained by some local lord, and we must find a way to free it so that we can continue on our journey. The locals at the tavern warn of a bog we will need to cross. and of an old witch in the sewers with special levy shoes that will allow us to cross. Very odd writing, I suppose, but it'll do. These 4 hooligans think they're the real warriors of light and try to beat us to it, only to be captured and need rescuing in the very sewers I needed to be in. Now I feel is a good time to mention those other jobs. Dark Knight has some sort of AoE skill, but no gear to speak of as of yet, so we'll just ignore him for now, along with Evoker, who has a summon skill that's grayed out for the moment. I won't be adding Dark Knight to the counter, by the way. We already saw one back in FF2, so go watch that video if you're curious. Bard allows us to sing songs, and I imagine more would be unlocked as we rank up the job. No bows, however, like in FF14. Just a classic instrument-wielding bard. Geomancer kind of plays like a black mage, able to wield rods, and instead of relying on MP, uses the terrain itself as a source to cast powerful spells. Black Belt is effectively just a better monk, with a charge up to boost your next attack and an AoE kick ability. Hell, Black Belt is more like FF14 monk than the monk actually is. It's kind of funny how that worked out. Dragoon makes another appearance, another FF2 original, this time with its signature leap ability for the first time, making you immune to all effects for a turn before crashing down with extra damage. And finally, Viking, who is quite literally what Shadowbringers dwarves are designed after, and I adore this little guy with all my heart. He can also AoE taunt, by the way. Now, where was I? Oh yes, we obtained the shoes from the old hag, headed down south to the Golden Manor, raided the whole place of its very shiny valuables, and put my new jobs to the test against Golder, only to have him shatter the very crystal we seek right in front of me just before he croaked. Yeah, no, I'm not falling for it, buddy. Every crystal we've seen is blue thus far, even the fire crystal. That was just some random rock. But hey, now my ship is free and it's time to press on. Exploring about a world that's mostly water, I do find a little Isle of Bards singing songs about warriors of darkness and our first Leviathan and Odin mentions of the series. West is a large city that's gated off on foot, more on that soon. And to the northwest there's a little village of evokers where we find our first summons. Speen can finally play with her new job. Summons are a bit odd and I'm not exactly clear how they work or what was intended. Each one seems to have at least 2 different attacks, like Ifrit either doing fire damage to one target or casting a chunky party heal. It'd be very useful if, you know, I could control the damn thing at all. I'll keep playing with it, but the moment I need consistency, Speen is putting the robe back on. Still, cool to see a number of staples get their starts here. Shiva, Ramu, Ifrit, Titan, most of the primals we know from 14 are all here at this point. Now, I meant to fly over that grand city we saw to scout about it, knowing full well I cannot land, and well, they had other ideas. Getting shot out of the sky is not the smoothest landing, but I suppose it sort of works. Turns out Sonoria is suffering from a bad case of civil unrest, if you could call it that. The locals say the king has gone crazy and pitted his military against itself for funsies, I suppose. Sonoria is split into 4 different mapped sections. There isn't much we can do as most of the shops are locked, but I do find a princeling being manhandled in a tavern, and with no further questions, slap everyone in the room not wearing livery. The princeling is then confused why his papa has lost it and so joins our party to get to the bottom of this. After I ask around town and raid an old abandoned fortress for a lot of sweet dragoon gear, mine now, the people do speak of a magister who may or may not be Garuda. There it is. There's that last primal I was looking for. Something tells me he's gonna be a boss fight real soon. The prince and I head to the castle, spend the night upstairs. The old man comes running in with a knife before taking his own life, and yep, sure enough, there's that creepy old magister doing some mind control nonsense. Garuda was honestly a pretty simple fight, though something about the leap attack made Kuro do absurd amounts of damage. I guess perhaps Dragoon Leap has a boost to damage against flying enemies? Once again, I'm accidentally the hard carry of the group. This playthrough so far is very lore accurate. As a reward for our political involvements, I'm given a new airship that is far faster than the old one. It cannot, however, land on water anymore, but lands on, well, land, I suppose, which is pretty normal. Come to think of it, the last one technically didn't land as much as it did sea? Oh, whatever, let's just move on. The speedy new ship lets me reach Doga Manor, a very pivotal moment in the story. First of all, Moogles! And far less important, we learn of Noah and his trio of companions, including the wise Doga, blah blah blah, there's a sleepy Une, and the very pissed off Zonde. And precisely why Zonde is so pissed off. He's not very fond of having a mortal form, turns out, and wishes to unmortal everyone else in revenge. Doga then takes us to a secret cavern, blesses our ship with submarine powers, and gives us another elemental horn. Should we find the fourth, we can use these to get to Xande's fortress, and hold up a minute. Did he just say what I think he said? Eureka? Really? Oh, this game just gets better and better. Quick little side note. When selling off stuff, I realized the arrow spell that I pulled off Speen to make space for a summon was in fact still in my inventory. Very neat. Using my newfound submersible, I head into any cave I can find, wildly unprepared, get my cheeks clapped by Odin under Sonoria, I'll be coming back for you later, find a sunken cavern with annoying enemies that multiply when hit by physical attacks, a little bit of foreshadowing there by the way, raid an underwater temple for Noah's magic loot that I then use to wake up the sleepy Unye. And following Unye's guidance, head to the ancient ruins just slightly north of here for, you guessed it, yet another airship. Final Fantasy really has a thing for airships, I swear to God. Those ruins were annoying as sin, by the way. Just about every enemy in there had that dumb split-up passive that drove me up a wall, and I could not figure out a reliable trick to killing them, but alas, we did get there in the end. And it was certainly worth it, because good God, this is one beefy boy. This isn't an airship. The Invincible is a flying fortress complete with shops and a bed and even a fat storage chocobo that would have been more useful had the remaster not stripped away any need for it, just saying. Still, I can see the intent here. Very well done. We also get the very first Dark Knight weapon, so finally, at long last, I can play my job. It is interesting to me that Dark Knight uses katanas. I guess Dark Knight was the original samurai after all. As it turns out, Dark Knight is kinda bad? I went to test it out on Odin, got my cheeks clapped once more, and got far more mileage out of Dragoon, in fact. Ended up looking around using my new airship and finally hopping into that weird lake back home only to fight and slay Leviathan. Also found Bahamut from before hiding in his lair, and once again Dragoon is the hard carry with that busted ass leap ability. Knight's Guard reducing all incoming damage is pretty handy too, since it seems every boss just throws various flavors of AoE at you. Slaying these two also grants you their summons, which we will have to try out later. I do love the touch of getting to come back and pummel both Bahamut and a sea dragon far mightier than the Nepto dragon we fled from earlier. It does a really good job of showing you just how far your party of onion lads has come. Oh, I also found a little village of Dark Knights and beat up some ninja behind a waterfall for Kiku Ichimonji. My god, there's a lot of tropes that start in FF3 as it turns out. The nearby cave is flooded with more of those annoying multiplying enemies, but apparently Dark Knights can sort of ignore that mechanic entirely. Good to know for later. I feel Dark Knight was kind of awkwardly placed. You get it so early compared to when it's actually helpful, much less even has access to any sort of gear. Even these shops sell the same items that are on your airship, which you need to access the shops to begin with. It's a bit of an odd choice. However, after a quick rematch with Odin using the broken power of Dragoon's leap ability once more, we can finally give Speen the last of her summons. Not that they've been very reliable thus far, but who knows? I've wasted enough time filling out my bestiary and used my new airship for its intended purpose, hopping over this maze of mountain ranges to get to yet another maze of dark corridors and more annoying multiplying enemies. Please, can we stop with these little fuckers? I see now why they suddenly handed me so much Dark Knight gear all of a sudden. And it takes very little effort at all to snag the Earth Thing after a very unremarkable boss fight. Returning to Doga's manor, he whisks us off to some cavern beneath his home. It's a short, simple dungeon, and at the end awaits Doga and Unye, ready to fulfill their final sacrifice and use the power generated by clashing with the Warriors of Light to forge the key to a secret vault buried beneath Circus Tower. The forbidden lands of Eureka house ancient and powerful weapons far too dangerous to be left unattended, you see, and we will be needing those weapons if we have any hopes of stopping Xande. The fight with Doga and Unye is simple, Doga being an advanced black mage and Unye a powerful white mage. With keys in hand and our fallen friends in our hearts, finally, at long last, we can set out to put an end to Xande's schemes. This really is sounding like the Crystal Tower raids I know from 14, all it's missing is that labyrinth of ancients at this point. The Fangs let us shatter these barriers approaching the tower. This also is very reminiscent of Final Fantasy XIV. This then allows us to take our airship through and hop the mountain range barring our path, and oh, nope, there it is. The Labyrinth of Ancients really is here too, and at its heart lies the Earth Crystal. Titan makes for a good test dummy for all those summons I've been collecting, and quite fitting, as once again we are given new jobs, one of which is actually Summoner. Each of these new jobs is a direct upgrade to a job we've already had, the other two being the White Magic Devout and the Black Magic Magus. Summoner is extra special, however, as it actually changed all of those previously inconsistent summons into reliable and far more powerful offensive spells. I do wish I still had at least one heal summon. I suppose Speen is a full-on DPS from now on. The labyrinth itself is huge, but not unlike most dungeons we've seen so far, and a short while later I am standing at the base of the Crystal Tower itself. Keeping up with Final Fantasy tradition, the final map never misses. It is gorgeous. Every wall and floor a vibrant crystalline blue, and before we ascend, we also have the option to instead head down below, using that Eureka key to enter the Forbidden Vault. Eureka is not at all like its 14 counterpart and is instead more of like a mini boss rush. Our main goal here is to collect 5 of the best weapons in the land, each with a guardian to test if we are worthy. Even Amon is here of all things. The Moonring Blade, Masamune, Excalibur, Ragnarok, and finally the Elder Staff all enter my bags, and as a treat, 2 new jobs are granted by that Elder Staff as well. Ninja is a melee who can equip any item in the game as well as throw these special shurikens we've seen a time or 2 for big burst damage. And Sage is the ultimate spellcaster, able to use any spell or summon in the game, albeit it is not as specialized as the 3 advanced casters we just obtained. There is also a special shop at the end selling some very exciting looking level 8 black and white spells, including a much needed full HP revive. This and Holy are the only things I actually make any use of since Speen will be throwing behemoths at everything that moves anyways. It is then on to Circus Tower itself. A very long dungeon and enemies hurt quite a bit. Genuinely an actual challenge for my under-leveled crew. FF14 really did just yoink the entire finale for its raid series. Even the rare boss dragons make an appearance over there as mid-bosses. As we reach the top and look into a mirror surrounded by suspiciously placed dragons, I'm sure those are just there for decoration, our heroes are trapped, paralyzed, and unable to defend themselves from those totally decorational dragons that are about to pounce. Helpless if not for the souls of Doga and Unye who come to our aid, collecting our friends from across the land to free our binds and hold off the attackers. Sarah, Sid, Desh, who is apparently still alive somehow, the now King Alice, and the head of the 4 silly little guys do their part, as we step forward for our fateful final encounter. Zonde, the most dangerous mage in all the land, tearing the earth asunder and raining fire from on high. The fight is short but lethal, a race to see who will break first, with every quake and meteor doing more damage than I can out-sustain, but in the end, our heroes stand tall, their journey finally at an end. Or is it? Come on now, I already know where this is going. Zonde was just the appetizer, as the cloud of darkness reaches from the void and strikes down our weakened party. Helpless against the onslaught, the shadow then retreats into its domain, gathering its forces for the final invasion. And in our final moments, before the light winks out, Doga and Unwe, once again, and for the last time, come to our aid, giving up their life force to save ours, allowing us one last chance to strike down the darkness. The light of hope rests in us now. No more failsafes, no more second chances. One last chance to enter the world of darkness and bring balance to this world. This final location is brutal, especially when you're underleveled like I am. I even had to take some time and grind a bit just to even have a shot at taking down any of the guardians lying within. Instead of a straightforward dungeon, we are given 5 paths to take. One leads to the heart itself, but doing so immediately is doomed to fail. The rest each lead to a dark crystal, not unlike the crystals of light that imbue us now, and its guardian at the ready to repel any invaders. Echidna was a true challenge until I did a little grinding. I was around level 40 when I entered, and upon looking it up after, these bosses are all level 55. Quite the gap there. Cerberus was honestly a pushover of a fight once I was actually on level, as was Ahriman. But the twin-headed dragon, that one was still frustrating. He basically just one-shot someone every single turn with single target attacks, and not even a protect spell was enough to survive, to the point where I just had to cycle revives as much as possible while using every last shuriken I had just to end the fight quickly. Now some of you might say I should have saved those for the final boss. But one, I don't really like Ninja all that much anyways, and this dragon was starting to piss me off. Upon slaying a guardian, its corresponding crystal would be freed and a warrior of darkness would leave us with his blessing, allowing us to use said crystal as a full revive and restore point, made for a pretty convenient anchor to grind just a little bit more. This video is getting long enough as is, however, and the cloud of darkness awaits. The Warriors of Darkness weaken the beast, reducing her damage to something far more survivable, but only just. My plan was simple. 1-1 on Devout would start the fight and haste buff Luna. This would give her more attacks every turn with Excalibur and Ragnarok. Keeping a close eye on how much damage we are taking and how much I have remaining, I'd attempt to out-heal the onslaught and let Luna swing unless we found ourselves too low to take another blast safely. In which case Luna would then guard to help us get caught up on health. Try to get caught up, that is, since even with guard and Kuraga, we were still taking slightly more damage than we could sustain every turn, putting this whole fight on a timer. Speen would forego any petty summons, calling forth Bahamut time after time and downing an elixir should her MP run out. While the cloud is being bombarded with Mega Flares, Kuro would return to Dragoon once more, leaping into the skies to avoid the worst of the damage and crashing down with twin lances of light and shadow. With no way of knowing how much health she has, how close or how far we are from victory, each turn inching closer and closer to death until at last... 1-1's healing light was too little too late. The only one left was Kuro himself, standing alone over his fallen friends. Is this how it all ends? After everything that we've gone through, the close calls that we've had just to fall at the final moment? All I can do is leap towards death one last time, and I'm still alive. Well, wait a sec, I heal back nearly as much damage as I take from a single blast. The leap dodging attacks entirely in between. So as long as I don't get hit back to back, there might just be a chance. I still have no way of knowing just how close I am to victory, and my health is slowly draining down with every passing turn. If I don't slay the beast with this one last leap, I'll fucking drink one of Speen's elixirs. Tastes like cherry. The battle rages on. With a few more elixirs and many leaps later, the Cloud of Darkness is slain. Fading into mist, the lone dragoon whisking his friends away to safety. We take our friends back home. The silly little lad to see his silly little friends. King Alice rests upon his throne once more. Sid and Desh return to Canaan to be with their beloveds. As for Sarah... Hooray! Kuro finally gets the girl for real this time! Finally, there is some romance in my Final Fantasy. This game felt both so much longer and yet much shorter than the previous two. Hell, this script is kind of proof of that, as it's already longer than either, and I haven't even written the outro yet. There was simply so much more to talk about at every turn. I even had to cut down and edit this after the fact just to really bring the script into a reasonable level without missing any of the good bits. This truly felt like an actual sequel and improvement over the first game, as opposed to FF2 being more like an experimental side grade. The difficulty really stressed your resources early on and made the finale truly climactic, where FF1 was a snowball by the end once War Machine was vanquished, and FF2 was just boosting a roided up twink with a broadsword to carry the whole party. FF3 had every party member feel important and needed, right up to the very end. Jobs felt simple early on and got complex once abilities were introduced for the first time, with encounters being set up to encourage the player to learn the new tools available. Some jobs I do think get a little left in the dark, pun very much intended. Dark Knight is really just a gimmick for about 2 dungeons, and Viking's taunt was neat until the entire endgame are magic users that ignore him entirely. Evoker and Summoner had some very fun flavor and really nailed the feeling of an inexperienced novice compared to having genuine control over the creatures that you summon. I had zero expectations going into 3. It's one of those that's not often talked about, at least not in the circles that I'm around. Most of the praise seems to go to 4 or 6 when it comes to the classic games. But this game floored me. The sudden scale shift when leaving the floating island was so unexpected. Sure, it's not a technical marvel as it's basically just another world map, but it certainly makes the world feel a whole lot larger. Oh, and the various followers we find along the way not being part of combat at all. A way better system than what we had in FF2 with the rotating 4th party member. I am giving Final Fantasy III 9 various random airships out of 10. Seriously, this game has an obsession with airships. I do want to clarify something. I will be adjusting these scores once I've actually finished the series and probably do a tier list for funsies because I'm a YouTuber and that's just what you do. I adored this game through and through. Granted, I am also a Final Fantasy XIV player, and the plethora of moments from 3 that ended up there, not to mention the Shadowbringers and Endwalker ties, so I might just be a little biased towards this one in particular, but regardless. Like and sub so that you don't miss out on the rest of the Final Fantasies, which are getting far less final when you think about it. If you'd like to support my work further, you can become a channel member for just $1 a month and have your name right here on all the future videos going forward. Thank you in particular for watching. Until next time.